The judge in Blake Lively's case just slapped down their psychopathic request.
And the court said no.
Breaking news, Justin Baldoni just got a big win, meaning Blake Lively got a big loss. Are her lawyers dumb?
Blake Lively just lost it in the courtroom after the judge hit play on that leaked audio, right in front of everyone. She fought tooth and nail to keep it buried, teaming up with Ryan Reynolds to shut it down for good. They even got an entire podcast wiped off the map. But guess what? None of it worked. Fate clearly had other plans, and this time, it's backing Justin Baldoni. March 4th, 2025. Mark that date, because that's the day the courtroom turned into a full-blown roast session. Judge Louis Lyman didn't just dismiss Blake's legal team. He tore them apart, piece by piece, in front of the entire gallery. If Blake walked in thinking her Hollywood status meant anything, she walked out legally obliterated. And the cherry on top? She completely broke down in court. Full tantrum, no holding back. Even her own lawyers couldn't hide their humiliation. At some point, they must have realized this case was never anything more than a bad joke. Blake and her team strutted into court like they were about to drop the hammer on B's case, only for Judge Lyman to take one look at their ridiculous request and hit them with the legal equivalent of, "Are you serious? How much of a disaster does your argument have to be for a federal judge to roast you in front of the entire courtroom?" That's next-level humiliation. But the embarrassment doesn't stop there. Oh no. Thanks to the judge's ruling, this whole legal circus is about to be broadcast live for the world to hear. That's right. Thursday's hearing will have a live audio feed, meaning everyone gets to witness Blake's legal meltdown in real time. And honestly, this is the moment we've all been waiting for. No PR games, no carefully planted TMZ exclusives, just raw, unfiltered reality coming straight through the speakers. The exact moment Blake realizes she just played herself will be there for everyone to hear. She thought she could march into court and demand some of the most outrageous subpoenas in legal history. Instead, she got shut down in the most brutal way possible. Let's break down just how insane Blake's demands actually were, because, honestly, it's almost impressive how deep into delusion she went. Her legal team had the audacity to demand 2.5 years' worth of B's phone records, text messages, location data, doctor visits, and who knows what else. Basically everything short of wiretapping his house. At this point, is she building a legal case or auditioning for a role as a full-time stalker? Picture this. Walking into a courtroom with a straight face and asking a federal judge for GPS tracking data on someone for over 2 years. Blake, what is this? An FBI investigation? Judge Lyman took one look at that nonsense and shut it down on sight. His response? A blunt and brutal, "You obviously cannot do that." That's it. That's how ridiculous her request was. So absurd it didn't even require an in-depth legal argument. No justification, no logic, just pure nonsense, and the judge torched it instantly. And here's the kicker. Even if, for argument's sake, Baldoni had been running some kind of smear campaign, which, spoiler alert, he wasn't. It supposedly started in August 2024. So why is she demanding records all the way back to 2022? Make it make sense. Someone explain this like I'm 5. Because right now, it's looking like a desperate reach. It's like filing a defamation lawsuit in 2024, but demanding to see someone's Uber texts from 2022. Make it make sense. The math isn't mathing, and even the judge was so over it that he flat out called her subpoena overly intrusive and disproportionate, which is just a fancy way of saying, "Blake, are you okay?" Let's be real. This wasn't about gathering evidence. Blake was out here asking for a full-blown government surveillance program on B's entire existence. But Judge Lyman wasn't having it. He saw right through the nonsense, and now? So will the entire world, because that live audio feed on Thursday is about to lay it all bare. Every desperate, overreaching move in her case is about to be exposed in real time. And now for the grand finale, the absolute meltdown Blake had in court. According to people inside the room, the moment reality hit, she physically tensed up, started whispering frantically to her legal team, and was visibly shaking as her plan collapsed right in front of her. And honestly, good. This entire case was built on smoke and mirrors, and now those mirrors are shattering on impact. The judge's ruling was so brutal, so publicly humiliating, that Blake's legal team actually tried to spin it as a win in the media. Now that's desperation. How embarrassing do you have to be to get wrecked in court and still try to act like you won? It's like getting dunked on, face planting on the floor, and then standing up like, yeah, I totally meant to do that. No, you didn't. You lost spectacularly. And just when you think it couldn't get worse for Blake, here comes the moment of absolute soul-crushing humiliation. When the judge used her own lawsuit against her to prove her request made zero legal sense. She contradicted herself so badly that her own words became evidence against her. That's not just losing. That's self-sabotage on a whole new level. And where was Ryan Reynolds while his wife was getting legally annihilated? Nowhere to be found. The man who practically lives on Twitter, always cracking jokes and making viral moments, suddenly turned into Casper the friendly ghost the second things got real. Guess he was too busy pretending to be Deadpool to show up for his wife's courtroom disaster. And honestly, I don't blame him. No one wants their name attached to this level of humiliation. But instead of admitting defeat, taking the L, and moving on with some dignity, Blake's team did what? Doubled down on the stupidity. Instead of fixing their case, presenting actual evidence, or acting like real lawyers, they rushed to file even more subpoenas, just blindly throwing legal nonsense at the judge, hoping something, anything, sticks. Blake just got a brutal reality check. Hollywood power means nothing in a courtroom. She thought she could intimidate her way to victory, but Judge Lyman treated her like a toddler throwing a tantrum in Walmart. And now, this legal circus is only spiraling further out of control. After today's public courtroom humiliation, there's no escape. The world is watching. The legal system isn't buying her nonsense, and her reputation is crumbling in real time. And the worst part? This is just the beginning. Blake wasn't just desperate. She went full Hollywood supervillain mode, demanding every single detail of Justin B's life. Calls, texts, emails, location data, work records, doctor visits, as if she was about to diagnose him with something herself. Who even asks for this? She acted like she was running a top-secret FBI investigation, when in reality, she was just making a complete fool of herself in front of a federal judge. And let's be real, this was never about justice. This was Blake grasping at straws, desperate to find dirt on Baldoni that doesn't even exist. She wasn't just requesting legal documents, she was throwing subpoenas like confetti, demanding Wayfair and studio business records, because apparently she needed to know what B was emailing his coworkers about 3 years ago. What's next? Blake demanding his Amazon order history? Judge Lyman wasn't having any of it. He took one look at Blake's outrageous request and shut it down, calling it overly broad and invasive, which in legal terms is just a polite way of saying, Blake, sit down, you sound insane. She was out here trying to turn the courtroom into an episode of Homeland, and the judge hit her with a cold, hard reality check. Even after she tried modifying the request, it still got denied. The judge saw right through her desperation and told her to narrow it down. And here's where it gets even funnier. The final ruling only granted her access to 4 months of records. Not 2.5 years, just 4 months. August to December 2024. Blake walked into court demanding B's entire digital footprint, every text, call, and email he ever sent. And she walked out with scraps. That's what happens when you try to abuse the legal system just to fuel your personal vendetta. But oh, it gets even worse. Because just when Blake thought she could control the narrative, the truth came crashing down on her. A leaked recording from Ari Emanuel, CEO of WME, just exposed the biggest Hollywood cover-up of the year. Turns out, Blake and Ryan Reynolds weren't just innocent bystanders in B's blacklisting, they were the ones who pushed for it. Ari Emanuel, the most powerful agent in Hollywood, the guy who runs WME, was caught on tape admitting that he personally fired Baldoni because of Blake and Ryan's demands. Let that sink in. They didn't just sit back and let it happen, they made it happen. And somehow, it gets even worse. because Emmanuel couldn't even show basic decency. He didn't just blacklist Baldoni, he mocked him like a middle school bully, calling him baloney behind his back. Imagine your own agent not only sabotaging your career, but straight up clowning you while doing it. Now, Blake's entire victim narrative is officially dead. This isn't just speculation anymore. This is proof that she and Ryan Reynolds actively worked to destroy Baldoni's career. And at this point, this isn't just Hollywood drama. This is shaping up to be a textbook defamation case. The worst part? The Freakonomics podcast, the one where Ari Emanuel straight up confessed to blacklisting Baldoni, somehow lost their recording. Oh, but luckily, a journalist in the room secretly recorded it anyway. What are the odds? Imagine being so deep in a cover-up that an entire podcast episode just vanishes into thin air. And Blake? She knew this was bad, because the second that leak dropped, she went into full-blown damage control mode. And when Blake Lively panics, she does what any good Hollywood elitist would do. She calls in the CIA. Yes, you read that right. Blake and Ryan just hired Nick Shapiro, a former CIA deputy chief of staff, to handle their PR crisis. At this point, this isn't even a legal battle anymore. This isn't just damage control. It's a full-blown government-level cover-up. Blake Lively is out here hiring actual intelligence operatives to spin her courtroom L into a win. And let's talk about who this guy is. Nick Shapiro isn't just some PR fixer. This is the same man who helped push the false narrative that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. That's right. The same guy who literally gaslit the public about a major political scandal is now running PR for Blake Lively. If that doesn't tell you how shady this situation is, nothing will. And let's be real. Why does an actress need a former CIA agent to do damage control? Why is a Hollywood defamation case suddenly turning into a full-scale intelligence operation? This is not normal. Blake has officially lost the plot. One minute, she's crying in court, playing the helpless victim. The next, she's bringing in an ex-CIA agent to silence the media. You can't make this up. The irony is almost too much. Blake has spent this entire lawsuit claiming that Baldoni ran a smear campaign against her. Yet she just hired one of the biggest professional smear artists in modern history. Nick Shapiro's entire job at the CIA was to manipulate public perception. And now, he's working to spin Blake Lively into the innocent victim. This isn't just PR cleanup. This is deep state Hollywood corruption at its peak. Blake is literally using CIA tactics to rewrite reality. She's not even pretending to play fair anymore. Instead of admitting she has no case, she's doubling down and bringing in a government-level propaganda expert to do the dirty work for her. And let's not ignore what happened the second Shapiro was hired. Boom! The New York Times suddenly drops a convenient hit piece on Baldoni. What are the odds? The same New York Times that's been infamous for pushing political narratives on command just happens to run a negative story on Baldoni right when Blake needs it most? Coincidence? Not a chance. Blake knows she's losing. That's why she's ditched legal arguments entirely. She's bringing in CIA operatives and weaponizing mainstream media to attack Baldoni in real time. And the funniest part? None of it is working. Because at the end of the day, the facts are already out there. The leaked audio proves Blake and Ryan blacklisted Baldoni. The judge's ruling proves that Blake's legal demands were beyond insane. And now, the world is watching her spiral, scrambling to spin what might be the most humiliating courtroom loss of the year. This isn't a legal strategy. This is a full-blown Hollywood panic spiral. And at this rate, Blake Lively's career isn't just sinking, it's imploding. Hollywood is treating her like radioactive waste. Not a single A-list celebrity is standing by her. Where's Taylor Swift? Where's Gigi Hadid? Where's that so-called girl squad that used to parade around screaming about female empowerment? Crickets. Absolute radio silence. You'd think with all the feminist empowerment speeches she's given, some of these Hollywood elites would have rushed in to defend her. Nope, not a single one. They see the writing on the wall. They know that standing next to Blake right now is a career death. And it gets worse. TMZ is now reporting that witnesses are refusing to testify because they fear backlash. If that doesn't scream manipulation and toxic Hollywood influence, nothing will. People literally don't want to speak on this case because they know if they say anything that doesn't fit Blake Lively's carefully curated narrative, their careers are over. The same woman whose crying victim has Hollywood insiders too scared to testify against her. That is power abuse at its finest. And let's not forget the Candace Owens takedown. Owens didn't just criticize Blake and Ryan, she absolutely annihilated them. Called them privileged elites who manipulate Hollywood politics for revenge. And she's right. That's exactly what they did to Baldoni. They used their influence, their connections, their PR power to try and erase his career. But instead of silencing him, all they've done is expose themselves as the most petty, manipulative duo in Hollywood. And Twitter, it had a field day. The phrase, Blake Lively's Karen moment, started trending, because at this point, that's exactly what she is. A rich, entitled Hollywood Karen who thought she could control the system, and now she's throwing a tantrum because it's not working. The memes are brutal. People are clowning her courtroom meltdown, dragging Ryan Reynolds for ghosting her when she needed him the most, and roasting her ridiculous legal strategies. And Hollywood? Oh, Hollywood knows a sinking ship when it sees one. This industry doesn't do loyalty, it does self-preservation. The moment someone becomes more of a liability than an asset, they get cut off. And that's exactly what's happening to Blake. No one wants to be tied to her legal disaster. The PR nightmare is too massive. At this point, supporting her is like jumping into quicksand. She's watching her career disintegrate, and there's nothing she can do about it. Because this isn't some he said, she said situation anymore. The evidence is out in the open. A Hollywood executive was caught on tape admitting that Baldoni was fired because of Blake and Ryan. That is career sabotage in black and white. And if Baldoni moves forward with a defamation lawsuit, it could be the final blow to Blake's already crumbling reputation. And here's Blake's worst nightmare. If Baldoni wins, she won't just lose money, she'll lose power. No more pulling strings behind the scenes. No more controlling the industry narrative. She'll be reduced to just another washed-up actress whose career collapsed under her own arrogance. And let's be real, that's already happening. The judge just handed Blake her biggest courtroom humiliation yet. He publicly exposed her for filing absurd subpoenas, making ridiculous legal demands, and trying to twist the system in her favor. And her Hollywood allies? Nowhere to be found. Even Ryan Reynolds has gone radio silent. If your own husband won't defend you publicly, that tells you everything you need to know. And let's talk about her latest desperate PR stunt, hiring a CIA agent to clean up her mess. Instead of proving her case with actual evidence, she brought in Nick Shapiro, a former CIA disinformation expert, to manipulate the media. This is not normal. No other actress in Hollywood history has ever needed government-level intelligence agents to handle a PR crisis. And if that wasn't shady enough, the second Shapiro came on board, the New York Times suddenly dropped a hit piece on Baldoni. The timing was way too perfect. It's so obvious that Blake and Ryan are still pulling strings behind the scenes, trying to spin the public narrative in their favor. But here's the problem. It's not working. Because the facts are already out. The judge already humiliated her in court. The leaked audio already proved her involvement in Baldoni's blacklisting. And the live audio feed of the next hearing? That's just gonna make things even worse. Blake Lively thought she could manipulate her way through this. She thought her Hollywood connections would protect her. She thought she could throw money at PR firms, weaponize mainstream media, and pressure people into staying silent. But she didn't count on the one thing she couldn't control. And the truth is, this case isn't just a courtroom loss. This is a full-blown career implosion. Blake Lively is burning bridges, losing allies, and exposing herself as one of the most vindictive, power-hungry actresses in Hollywood. And the worst part? This legal disaster isn't over yet. But one thing is crystal clear. If Blake thought this was bad, she better brace herself, because at this rate, her next round of courtroom humiliation could be the final nail in her career's coffin. And you don't want to miss what happens next. Like, share, and subscribe for more updates, because this meltdown is far from over.